Brought to you on UK Health Radio, The Natural Beauty Show, an in-depth look at the beauty issues that affect you. For decades, discussing the menopause has been a complete social taboo. Even within female circles, this hasn't been a topic that's up for open discussion. And as a result, millions of women experiencing the symptoms of perimenopause and menopause have often been unaware of this monumental point in their biological life is behind the physical, mental and emotional shifts they're feeling. Thank goodness for 2021, two brave women and a number of noteworthy beauty brands and celebrities. And we're now experiencing a dynamic shift in the social mentality towards the menopause. And the dreaded M word is actually now starting to be received with much more kindness and understanding. So what's changing and why? I mentioned two brave women. These are Heather Jackson and Sam Simister, the hearts and minds behind Gen M, a campaign to raise awareness of the perimenopause and menopause amongst women, the workforce and wider society, using beauty brands as a channel to provide education and support to women through raising awareness of the 48 common symptoms that women can experience for a number of years during this change. Joining me now to explain in much better detail than I can is Heather Jackson, co-founder of Gen M.
Well, Gen M, as you rightly said, there's two of us in here, two co-founders, myself and my good friend Sam Simister, who's also an executive at Innocent. And it started just over 2.5 years ago, basically. I'd got to the stage in my life where I'd cashed in on my business. I'd got to an incredible place where I could cash in. My kids were of the age where I could, they'd left home all for the right reasons. Mm-hmm. And I was ready to do my bucket list. I was ready for a Thelma and Louise swinging from the chandelier time. And I was planning on Kilimanjaro, Base Camp Everest, all of the things that I did, wow. Which was brilliant. But actually how I felt in that year that I had off was just absolutely just blew me away. I'd lost all my confidence. I was crying a lot. I was fatigued. I'd got pains where I didn't think I'd have them. And people said, well, you've just done Everest Base Camp. But I'm a fit person. I knew something was wrong. So I kept going to the doctors and they kept testing me for Graves' disease. They kept testing me for my thyroid. They kept testing me for cancer of my bones and everything else. And no one could find anything. And Sam, my good friend, who I'd worked with in my previous business, because again, it was all about building the gender balance. And actually, I've always been about trying to encourage more the opportunity, because opportunity is everything. And I do believe that jobs and life should be given to the person most appropriate for the job, regardless of gender, sex, ethnicity or anything. But let's be honest, gender's held many people back for a long time. And so I built this business, 15,000 women, 150 global companies. And Sam was one of those women that at the time I used as an icon and someone out there, because she was incredibly at the top of her career. And it was in the years where we needed, you can't be what you can't see. And many women couldn't see them. So that's how I got to know Sam. So she said, Heather, come down to London and have dinner with me. And so I went down and she was really shocked by, one, the weight I'd lost. Secondly, how as soon as she opened and said how's things, I just burst into tears. This was not the confident woman she'd left at 50 years old at an incredible party, absolutely ready to embrace life. And so whilst she said, come out to Portugal, I'm really worried about you. I said, well, you're not going to believe this, but I'm on antidepressants because the doctor has run out of things that it could be and just thinks I'm depressed. And I said, it's quite laughable, really, because I've got more cash than I thought I'd ever have. I've got my two kids really happy and left home. I've got this period in my life where I can do anything I want. And, you know, it's laughable that if the whole aspiration I've wanted to do is one, then that ends up making me depressed. And anyway, whilst I was out there, she said, Heather, I don't think you're depressed. I think you're perimenopausal. And I'd never, ever even heard of the word. I was gobsmacked. So she went back into her office to work and I sat on a sunbed and Googled it. And I was blown over. As soon as I Googled it, I'd got 32 of the symptoms that I could read. You know, it was like, it was so, to be honest, it was such a relief. Anyway, this is a bit of a long story round, but Sam came out and says, oh my God, I'm perimenopausal and I can sort all this now because I'm a doer. Yeah. If I find a problem, don't just let me get on, let me work out how I've got to get through this. And she said, well, good luck there. And I said, what do you mean? She said, well, I'm perimenopausal, I'm almost menopausal now, and the marketplace and that is dire. She said, you go on the internet and you can't find what you're looking for. There's no one site, there's just no one stop. You can either go on really medical sites or you can go on just community sites. It was and so I spent 3 days out in Portugal looking for everything from, I was having hot sweats as well, down to climate control bedding, where was it, and everything else. And we suddenly realized that actually all the brands that we'd been loyal to all these years suddenly seemed to be invisible to them. They were letting us down. Sam had a breakdown in her story life, that in Marks and Spencer's, when she'd gone to get some pajamas, and she was like, God, is this what I'm left to now? Thermal 90s.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was like, this is...
it doesn't represent who you still are. Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong, Marks and Spencer are a partner on board everything that we're doing now, so which I'll tell you about in a minute. But that was 18 months, 2 years ago, and that's the state where it was in. And anyway, cut a long story short, I researched it over the 3 days I was in Portugal with her. We discussed it, 2 bottles of wine later. We decided, that we were going to do something about this, that actually if we as relatively intelligent women who've absolutely controlled everything in their lives, from the careers to when I had my kids and to how I was planning everything, if we could be knocked so sideways by something we never saw coming, we weren't idiots. We weren't, everyone else would be doing the same. And when we've got more women now than ever before, there's more women in the biggest growing demographic of the working population is women over 40. It's incredible. And the fact that we're already know that we're the first generation of women to live longer post-reproduction than pre-reproduction if we don't get knocked over by a bus, sort of thing. You know what I mean? And, it was like, how can we let this happen? And so we started to look into it, and we were going to build the one-stop site for everything. We had this great illusion that we were going to have the Google of the menopause. Everything great would come through us, and we traffic it that way. But actually what we realized, and before we did some research, because Sam's a very much scientific one behind everything. And whereas I go with a gut reaction, Sam needs evidence. And I'd gone, well, we are invisible. We're just invisible to brands and organisations. She said, no, we're going to do some research. So we did a very credible set of research. We brought in an agency who looked at everything, and we built what was called the invisibility report. And from that, it really clearly shared there was a big problem with how women in middle life, and especially menopause, were feeling and seen towards society, to brands, to workplace, with 97% of menopausal women believing that brands needed to do better and work harder for them. 87% felt overlooked by society and the companies that they were working for. I mean, you've seen lots of stats recently on this and how women are feeling in the workplace. But it also highlighted as well that the majority of women only could name 3 out of what we classed as 48 symptoms of menopause. With all our research, we came to credible medical and clinical symptoms. And there's 48. Now, when we're all complaining about life not understanding the menopause and it being a taboo subject, if we as women don't know what symptoms we're looking for, how can we expect men, how can we expect organisations, and how can we expect brands to cater for us when even we don't know what all the symptoms are? It's just not been a priority in anyone's list and top of the agenda. So we created this incredible report, and then we looked completely into what we were doing. We started the site, and then we were recognising that in this meantime, there's some great things being done by people like Louise Newsom, pushing on doctors and bringing out the awareness of the medical side and how much more doctors needed to be aware of the menopause. And that was all really great. You got your celebrities, you got your Davinas, and you've got, you're always all talking and then doing that great documentary to raise the awareness of it. And then you got your Diane Dancy Brooks and Caroline Harris is pushing on legislation. So we kept saying, obviously brands and organisations haven't been brought into this yet. And that's when we realised that we wanted to be, Gen M is now the menopause partner of brands. And what we do is actually what we've recognised is that menopause is not a gender issue. It's not a workplace issue. It's not a medical issue or a D&I issue per se, but it's the sum of all parts. And actually, it's a societal issue. And so before everyone starts going, we'll blame the doctors and we'll get the government to do some legislation and make it all work, we realised, one, we needed to normalise the conversation and understand the symptoms and have society better knowing that. But also we needed to recognise that this wasn't an issue that just affected women. You know, the highest rate of divorces is women in the early 50s. The highest rate of suicide of women is early 50s. You know, women are now starting to leave the workplace, and they're saying on surveys that they're doing it because of the menopause. But actually, our research is so many of those women, when they were leaving, didn't know it was the menopause and why they were leaving. So again, there's a hell of a lot into this. So we decided then that we wanted, if there was all push was going on medical and all that, even in the media, it's very, you'll have realised as well, Natalie, that there's a lot in women's magazines and it's very much woman on woman speaking. Yeah. So we thought, well, actually, to really bring impact here, surely we need to bring in the brands and the organisations onto this. Not about workplace policy per se, but actually every part, have them understand that every part of their business is impacted by menopause, whether it be the work colleague or the consumer, or their merchandise that they could have that could be menopause friendly for some of those symptoms, to the new product development, to how they market, because our research showed that women were feeling that they weren't seen in adverts, they weren't seen in campaigns, they weren't seeing images of themselves, authentic midlife women. You know, it's very, very stereotypical. So that's where we went forward to. So we started Gen M, which is, like I said, to unite brands and support them to absolutely not only raise the awareness of menopause, but also learn and understand how to serve it better to the customer and to the consumer. And so we started with a launch campaign, and we did 48-48. We did a campaign called 48-48, where we were going to get 48 of the biggest brands to recognise as 48 symptoms, come on board with us, unite with a pledge that they're going to understand from our invisibility report that we all need to do more about menopause, and they can, because no one's got it right here. Women haven't got it right. Companies haven't got it right. You know, no one's got it right. So it's not a hard ask to ask anyone to say, please, can you accept there's more we can do for the menopause? And then they pledged to do that. They also wanted to pledge to look more into what the colleagues needed, what the consumer needed, what, you know, marketing, merchandise, everything in here. So we launched on the 1st of October, our 48-48 campaign, and I'm pleased to say as of today we've got 34 brands on board. Lovely. We're in negotiations with a lot more, because again, to bring them on as founding partners, you have your agreements, you have your contracts, and they've all got to be, you don't pick on companies like Marks and Spencers and Next and Vichy and Bravissimo and Simba without them having legal teams that see. We can't announce who else is coming on till the ink's dry. But we're very, very comfortable and confident that, you know, by the end of November we'll have the 48 places signed up, and that's an incredible unity of brands that can really come together. Because it wouldn't, I don't know whether it's going to amaze you or not, or you're surprised about this, because I'm sure it's the same in the beauty market as it is for any other industry. But right now, there's 2% of the UK audience that are vegan per se, you know, completely vegan. And you look at the money that's spent by companies on understanding them, new product development, merchandising, marketing, signposting to them, and actually learning how not to narc them off as well, because you don't want to narc off a vegan, do you? You know what I mean? And I say that because my daughter's one. So, but again, you know, you look at that 2% now, times that 2% by 10, and you get the menopausal audience. 20% huge, of the UK market is menopausal, and there's no signposting, there's no marketing, we're just not out there. So Gen M are working alongside our 48 founders to absolutely bring out the world's first menopause friendly badge, to go beside gluten free and vegan, and to go on beauty products, fem care, clothes, bedding, food, so that we as women, you know, let's be honest, when the menopause hits or the perimenopause, it's the most inconvenient time of your life. You know, you're a busy person anyway. You need this like a hole in the head. So actually you need solutions that work for you, very simply and easily to find. And I know at the moment there's a lot of media on HRT, and everyone's personal choice. And we need to give informed choice to people, you know, the options that they have. And, you know, some people use HRT, others don't, but equally there's natural ways to take on the menopause as well. But the other part of the menopause is it's a transition, it's not a disease. And just as much as you wouldn't run a marathon in a pair of slippers, Why are we asking women to run the biggest marathon of their lives so emotionally, physically, and mentally unprepared? It's destined to not give you the best experience. So even if you do go to the doctors and even if you do take HRT, you're still going to need nutrition, the right nutrition. You're still going to need the right exercise. And so why wouldn't you encompass it? Just as much as you run a marathon, you train. So you need to prepare yourself for the menopause. You eat the right food. You look into what you're needing to eat. You get the right sleep. So you look into how you're going to get better sleep. You train with people who've already been there, done the T-shirt, worn it. So why wouldn't you talk to more menopausal women and see how they've what's worked for them?
Yeah.
And you absolutely get around you what's there. So I don't have any problem with if a woman's only got light symptoms at the beginning. Maybe it is a loss of anxiety or overwhelmingness. But actually coming in from work, switching on the radio and lighting a calming candle, if that works for her, that works for it. So I absolutely do believe there's a place for brands to absolutely signpost and help those symptoms, say this may work for you, because no one woman's menopause or anyone in menopause or in transition has the same menopause. Some may have all 48 symptoms, some may be debilitated, so others might have 2 or 3. But I can guarantee you now, you ask anyone who's been through menopause, and many of the women, especially of my mother's generation, go, oh, it wasn't that bad. Well, in the 21st century world, not that bad suggests it could be better. And we deserve better.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean? So this is what Gen M's about. And actually, you know what? The reach of brands like Vichy and Boots, their reach to absolutely help raise the awareness, their reach to men and women in their organisation, employees wise, their marketing budgets to be able to build awareness campaigns and do different things. It's incredible, and the touch points that they go to. So we as Gen M, we've decided to unite with companies to actually them drive this. We absolutely give them all the tools to drive this agenda, to understand it better, to serve it better. But they've got all the capacity to do it.
Yeah,
and we really do believe that will bring the real change to the change that we're looking for.
Absolutely. I've got so many questions for you,
Heather.
This is amazing. First of all, I mean, I'm in my early 40s, so I imagine I'm starting to get some of the symptoms. Actually, my grandmother was early menopausal, so it's actually quite common in my family that it just happens earlier than normal, whatever normal is these days. But I know that some of my listeners listening in are going to be saying, oh gosh, well, what are some of these 48 symptoms? I've been experiencing a few things. I'm not going to ask you to list all 48 right now, but
menopause bingo.
Get your tick sheets ready. But no, could you just give me some of the more common ones?
Absolutely. Well, many people define them into 3 categories: physical, psychological, and then relationships and sex, because and actually if you take physical, psychological and sex into this whole thing, you ain't got much left there.
What a cocktail for
and let's be honest here, the change is called a change because that's what it does. It changes everything, and we'll talk about more of that later on. But so the physical symptoms are ranging from your hot sweats to your fatigue, pains in your bones and in your joints, various things. The real physical hot sweats, is one of the biggest ones. But actually, sleep deprivation, insomnia, these are credible experiences. And the amount of women I know who are wide awake at 2 o'clock in the morning, honestly, a business that does the menopausal shop and calls itself the menopausal night shop, they'll be inundated. Really would.
2 o'clock in the morning shopping.
Absolutely. So and then you've got your psychological, which is very hard to understand, but actually the problem is many women aren't looking for these symptoms, and then they creep up on them, and before they know it, they're floored by it. So that's anxiety. That's so you've got anxiety, you've got overwhelmingness, you've got lack of confidence. These are all part of this, and I know I'm only skipping through, but if you go onto our site, www.gen-m.com, and go onto the symptoms, you've got a really great list of the 48 symptoms with not only normal language, and I call normal language, we're not using medical language or dry language. We've just talked to you about the symptom as if we were talking to you on the radio now. So it's written in a way that everyone isn't fearful of it. Men and women can read it, and it also gives tips and advice on each of those symptoms of what you can do. It's only as a starter though, because the idea is that you read it and you go, I need to find out more. We're not the oracle.
It's a signpost.
Absolutely. So, and then we have sex, low libido, we also have back into the physical symptoms. Some women have the most debilitating symptoms of, vaginal dryness, and, that can turn into so much more. There's some quite horrific things that can happen if you don't control your menopause and let it control you, and so low libido, lack of sex drive, painful sex, these are all things that impound as well. And when your confidence is at the low and you're feeling anxious and you've got, some physical symptoms as well, it just impacts the whole of life. And if you're not talking about it or you're not aware of it, it's pretty frightening, because something's wrong, but you don't know what it is. And I mean, my example with my family was my son and daughter. They felt I was going crazy. That was my son Sam's words, and he's 22 years old. But they came home for a weekend, and I was really, really excited about them coming home. But then there was this gremlin inside me that was angry, which was short-tempered. It was doing all the things I knew that aren't me, but would annoy and irritate. And it was like, it was like the imposter syndrome that was there. But this was this, and I call it the menopausal gremlin. And I knew I was being horrible on something that I'd been really looking forward to. And they both said, Mum, I think, you're not at the best at the moment. I think we'll go a bit earlier. And I went, that's all right for you to leave. You can leave me, but I can't leave myself. Yeah. And I think many women will recognize that when you're at a low, because you don't like, anyone can tell you they don't like you, because that's fine. You don't like yourself. Do you know what I mean? You don't like the person you are, but you have no idea how to get back to the woman you are. You've lost it for a moment. And so it's something that we all need to get on top of. We really do. And, people, when I said about the change being the change and change is everything, to really embrace it and treat it as a transition, accept it changes everything from your hair. You might get thinning hair, or you might be seeing a change in it, but actually get a different shampoo, get a different conditioner that works for it. You might be having the hot sweats. You might take natural symptoms, or you might go to HRT for that, but you still might get some symptoms. Get yourself some climate control bedding, get yourself a fan, work around what you're needing to make your experience of any of the symptoms better for you. And that's what we're about, even down to beauty. How many women get the hot sweats, or the just flushes, or however it might be. Now we know that there's great foundations out there that stay on 24 hours a day and actually may hold sweat, but they don't say it on the package, and they don't say this is ideal for you. And actually what you're wanting when you're out there going, I'm on a Zoom, I want to look my best, and I know I'm going to probably get a hot sweat. I do not want to have a Rudy Giuliani moment where his hair colour went down his face. You don't want the streaks coming. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. It's rocket science. But actually, for beauty product, just said, you know what, we see you, we hear you, this collection works for you. We're not asking them to go, buy a menopause product that's for foundation. We're asking them to say, this could work for you. Yeah.
So what you're saying is, look, brands don't have to go out and reformulate specific products. It's just making consumers that might be in that time frame of their life aware that actually there's elements of our products that already exist, and here's how they might help you.
And absolutely, and just call them out, because trust everything. A woman would love to know that the brand is thinking about her. And and that's the start. I mean, don't get me wrong, we would love more companies to make more menopause specific symptoms for beauty, for and relate to beauty as the whole body, not just the face. Do you know what I mean? But again, it's time, and all this will happen, but we've got to raise that awareness. And in a world where obviously I working with gender diversity, and we all know that the only way that we got things moving properly to get more women at the top was the great report, McKinsey report, that came out that showed that women who were at the top of a company, those companies outperformed other companies who didn't have women in a balanced way at the top, outperformed them financially and behaviourally. Now, when the gender pound started to be talked about, then people start to think about it. There is a menopausal pound here, but it's a very purposeful pound. There's a menopausal pound for the companies with their employees, because we don't want to lose women when they're at the top of the tree in the 40s, in a real role of a career and everything else. They can't afford to lose that talent, and they want to retain it and they want to attract it. But there's also the menopausal pound of the consumer as well. And I don't want any of you to go, oh my God, companies are going to go out there and start, milking the market of menopause. No, our research has shown that 88% of women want better signposting. We're asking companies to wake up and smell the coffee and support these women. You know, it's not, and it's all about choice and control. They might put it on the shelf, you don't have to take it. But actually, if you can't find it on the shelf in the first place, that's the problem. Do you know what I mean?
Sure, so, absolutely. Yeah. I think that's where, you know, you mentioned the badge that you're having created. That would be so helpful, wouldn't it?
Oh, I mean, even, without a doubt.
You know,
it'll be game changing.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you're right. You know, if someone needs gluten-free or they want vegan or organic, you know, we've got symbols for this and we can identify them.
But if you're not a vegan, you can still eat it.
Exactly.
You don't go, oh my God, I'm not going to eat that. That's a vegan biscuit. Do you know what I mean? You go, oh, that looks really great. I'm going to have that. And it's also great for a vegan as well. Do you know what I mean? Sure. And that's what we need. We don't want the fear factor of menopause put on going, oh my God, I'm not having that. But equally, you know, many people think, oh, menopause, middle age, 50, you know, the average is 51. But as you already said, your grandma had early menopause. About 10% of females have early menopause or surgical menopause. We often forget about that. Menopause is frightening and lonely enough because it's a very disparate landscape. But, you know, as a couple of my close friends who've unfortunately had cancer, they've unfortunately come through it. But obviously they went straight into menopause. And they said the guilt on you when your family have supported you all that time because, you know, the fear of life and death, you were alive. But then you feel like a fraud to be going, I'm having a terrible menopause, because it's like, get over yourself. You've survived. Do you know what I mean? And
but that's not right, is it?
No, you know, but do you know what I mean? But the guilt on many women to actually accept that, well, 1 minute you were saving me, but I'm not enjoying this life that I've got now, and I'm not me. Do you know what I mean? And it's quite frightening, really. And so we do need to call it out and understand it better and support it better, not just in the workplace, not just by the organisations and brands, but also society as well. Yeah. You know, partners, our research showed that 66% of partners felt helpless. And actually, I like the word helpless because it shows that they're not ignorant of this. They know they want to do something, but they don't know what. Do
you think there's also an element of, I mean, I'm very much a modern independent woman, and, you know, very much a similar background to yourself. And to be honest, it's never bothered me what a man has thought about me in a workplace or in the home life. But, you know, the attitudes of men, I don't think we can end this conversation without talking about that. I mean, I've actually experienced this directly myself. In a previous marriage, I'm quite happy to share this with people because I imagine it's quite common, actually. You know, my ex-husband, he wasn't a particularly nice person anyway, but, you know, his comment always used to be around a dinner table with friends. You know, his party joke, if you like, was, oh, you know, I've got 3 teenage daughters and they've all gone through puberty and it's been hell with their hormones, and before you know it, they're going to have fled the nest, and then by that time that happens, my wife's going to hit the menopause. Aren't I the lucky man? You know, and I'm horrified. Felt minuscule, unloved, unaccepted, and how awful. You know, is that a common experience for women, do you think?
There's a certain trait of men that it'll always be part, unfortunately, and that's why you've divorced him. Yep. But equally, you know, but equally on that, we are finding that the majority of the huge companies we're working with, what's really interesting is that, you know, still we're speaking to a lot of executive men who have to sign this off. They often have a partner at home that's menopausal. Yeah. So they're absolutely seeing this better. And I actually think the more we raise the awareness of the 48, because let's be honest, unfortunately our generation, and for years it's been, oh, she's got PMT and everything else, and don't go near her for a few days. And it was almost like it was embraced as you just accepted it and that's what you did, not how can I get over this, how can I make it better. And I think it's still that same generation of men who are actually going, oh God, you know, roll your eyes and everything else. But if they were to actually read the 48 symptoms and put themselves in getting any one of those, then they start to look differently. And I do think, you know, we as women aren't blameless in why it's a taboo as well, because even my mother didn't talk about her menopause. You know, it was like, you know, and then when I was going through all this, and then I put together, I did focus groups all over the country with Sam to see whether we've got a business and whether we should bring it out. And I invited to one, and she was shocked by my story. And then she said at the end, oh, Heather, I feel terrible. Why didn't you talk to me? I would have told you it was menopause. I said, you feel terrible. I said, I could slap you if I really felt like it. I said, one, you went through it without talking to us and going through it. And then secondly, you haven't prepared me for it. And everything in my life has been prepared for. So how could you knowingly not even just go, hey, Heather, you might be thinking that you're burning your candles at both ends and you're on this great life, but just be careful. It's going to come in. Do you know what I mean? I said, so if we as women haven't talked to one another, how on earth, can we start blaming everything else? I mean, I do think it is scandalous that the doctors don't know enough about menopause, and that is all changing. But let's be honest, we didn't go to the doctors to find out about puberty. No. So really, the first port of call for menopause shouldn't be your doctor. You should be able to investigate and understand it a bit better. And then if your symptoms are bad, by all means, go to the doctor and seek. But if I've not been the only person in here, we've come through COVID. We know what the NHS is like. We know how long the doctors' waiting rooms are. We know we've only got 6 minutes when we get in there. So really prepare yourself. If you are going to go and find out you've got menopause, prepare yourself. Get something like the Balance app or do a journal and write down your symptoms and how often you're having them and how you're feeling. So you can really be effective in that and actually call it out. Actually ask them if you think some of these are perimenopausal or menopausal, and would they consider giving you HRT and everything else, and what would be my risk personally on that, and absolutely just prepare yourself better for it, because I do think we owe it to society and we owe it more to ourselves to take responsibility. We've only got one life, and we haven't got that life. If you're in your 50s now, I haven't got time to wait for the government to legislate for something like this. I haven't got time for companies to do new product development. I need to find out what I can do best for me right now. Do you know what I mean? And
absolutely.
Believe me, my daughter's going to love her menopausal life.
It's going to be glorious for her.
People out there who are doing incredible things to change this, but that's what we're here for. Every generation's here to make the society for the one below us much better. And it's all exciting times.
Excellent. So let's just end then. We talked a bit about, what companies can do with existing products, but you have mentioned a few times that there's a call for more products and specific products that would directly help menopausal symptoms. Could you give us some ideas on that?
Well, I mean, definitely. I mean, obviously, you've got your mascaras, you've got your foundations. You're just understanding the different changes of your skin that it goes through. And it's not an aging, because it's a different period. I know that everyone puts it down to aging. So I do think there's a lot more in the beauty world that we can do. I do think there's a lot more recognition of the symptoms around beauty and your hair. Let's not forget your hair or your nails. I mean, even down to your brittle nails. I mean, many women they think, it's because I've been using gels for too long, and different things. And actually, no, it's not. So we need brands to call this out, to support it, to look at it. So if any brand who's listening, or any of you will realise when you see those 48 symptoms, there's so much more to be done with this. And confidence and lack of confidence is one of the biggest things. And I would argue for many women listening to this, the one thing that actually gives you the confidence in the morning sometimes is actually strut your stuff, walk out there with your makeup on, your hair done, and you feeling really good with yourself. And actually, if you're feeling your makeup's looking crap on you because it's your skin goes so absorbent, you put your foundation on that was on for 24 hours and you look at it 10 minutes later and think, have I put them on? And then you don't know whether it's brain fog that causes you to actually think, have I put my foundation on? Or actually your skin's just saturated it in. Yeah. But, I'm laughing at this, but, we do need to laugh a bit more at menopause, but laugh with it, not at it.
Absolutely. I mean, it's definitely very parallel to the whole attitudes towards mental health awareness and mental health issues. Actually, if we can have a bit of a laugh with it, it just lightens the whole topic discussion and makes it easier for people to talk about the symptoms.
Totally. And I know that we have to put categories, and the psychological category can go into mental health, but I don't want any woman to think she's having mental health problems. She's in a transition. Remember, anyone out there, when you absolutely are going crazy, remember, if you've had teenage kids, you afforded them slamming of the door, going monosyllabic, and you actually gave them a cup of tea and a biscuit when they came out of the room, because it was like, are you all right? Are you okay? We as women, it's almost like we're not allowed to have that. It's like, you do that and you're a petulant woman. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? It's like, actually, do you know what? Just give me some sympathy and support. I don't need attacking you. So I think the sooner we make it a natural conversation and actually make it normalised, I think more men, women, teenagers, boys and girls. I mean, the best thing that we found when we were doing our focus groups, and that was how many young men said, this is brilliant. I now have something I can actually approach my mother about,
wonderful.
And that's where these generations below us are different. They are genuinely men and women, boys and girls. They're gender blind. They just want to see the best out of human beings. And any woman deserves to feel the best version of herself and have the opportunity to own her life, own her age, and control her menopause her way. And that's what I'd like to end on. It really is. So.
Well, wow, Heather, that was amazing talk. Thank you ever so much for that. And could you just repeat the website again that people can go to?
www.gen-m.com. And can I just add one more thing? Because if you're a woman out there who thinks everyone's getting hold of the menopause and sorting it out for you, can I remind you that there's a wonderful woman in the beauty industry called Anita Roderick from The Body Shop. And she once said that if you think you're too small to make impact, try sleeping with a mosquito. Now, I call out to everyone who's listening to this to actually go onto our website, www.gen-m.com, and go on to the pledge, go on to actually the pledge and actually commit to talk more about the menopause. Commit yourself to sharing it with your Facebook friends, sharing it with in your WhatsApp group, sharing it in your office space or your work or in the bar. And I don't mean I'm going to talk about menopause. I'm meaning just drop it in naturally into conversation. You start to do that, and then we can start seeing change. So we ask you to pledge and say you're going to do this. And we also ask you to pledge as well. Not only are we the menopause partner of brands, but we want to be the menopause voice of the consumer. If you think there are brands out there that aren't doing enough for you as a menopausal midlife woman, or indeed an early menopausal woman, write to us, tell us what companies they are and actually why. Don't just give me a problem. We're all intelligent women and we have some better ideas than some people are paid for. If you've got an idea that you think is stupid, share it, because I bet you it will be. Yeah. And let's go out to them and say, we call you to encourage you to do this. Because why wouldn't we? So please don't sit there thinking everyone's doing it and it's going to be sorted. We've all got a part to play, and we can all make everyone's menopause a better experience. So thank you very much for having me.
UK Health Radio, the station that makes you feel good. UK Health Radio, the station that makes you feel good.
We're now going to chat to two brands that are embracing the menopause and providing products that are directly formulated and marketed with these women in mind, Peri Beauty and Womanness. Joining me now is Kathy Kangas, CEO and founder of Peri Beauty, along with her MD, Annie Toker. It's lovely to have you both with me. And what a fantastic brand we're going to be talking about today. So Peri Beauty, could one of you just start by telling us a bit more about the brand, who the market is?
I'll kick off and then I'll let Annie take over, but very excited to join you. Thank you, Natalie. Peri Beauty, I created the brand to really address that almost forgotten woman, that older woman, that 40 plus woman. And I wanted to do it with very targeted skincare. So hence from that, we became known as the Nexperts, the Neck Authority, and then it led into, of course, our natural next step, menopause.
Yeah, I love that. Nexperts. That's a brilliant tagline. That's absolutely excellent. I mean, I suppose actually 40 plus woman, this is where we've kind of gotten a bit more used to our little wrinkles around our eyes, our little smile lines. And then we start to look at that sort of décolletage area, don't we? The neck and chest area. So yeah, Annie, what have you got to add? Well, tell me a bit more about the brand and what it stands for.
Yes, Peri has done extremely well since we launched in the UK. It's about 5 years ago now. We launched in Boots initially and then in Marks and Spencer's. And we have seen great success here. And I think that is down to the fabulously efficacious products, cutting edge technology. We've won awards, some great awards recently. And we've got a real audience we found in Marks and Spencer's who absolutely love the products. So the Throat and Décolletage Cream is the hero. And very proud to say it became the second best-selling product in the entire M&S business. And that's clothes and home as well. So there really has been a fantastic response to especially the neck and décolletage range of products.
And why do you think they appeal then to the perimenopausal or the menopausal woman?
I really do think that woman felt she'd been forgotten, she'd been left out. Every magazine you opened, you saw a wrinkle cream, a firming cream with a 16-year-old model. But on top of that, I think menopause was such a taboo kind of topic. Nobody, not that I saw, none of the big beauty giants were addressing that for women. And that's when we really said, wait a minute now, Annie and I kind of collaborated and said, gosh, menopause is the biggest, most drastic thing that happens to your skin in your entire life. Think of it like your skin is falling off a cliff, and it doesn't just climb back up and go back to normal. It stays there. So whether it's perimenopause, postmenopause, it does have special needs that need to be addressed.
Yeah, what are those needs? How does the skin change?
So for sure, Natalie, the biggest thing that we see is, of course, from about age 20, 22, the skin starts to lose collagen. So it depletes and depletes. They say by about age 70, your collagen's gone. And that is kind of, think of it like your scaffolding, your mattress, your structure. And that's why we were really, I think, careful about how we put together an amazing complex that really boosts collagen, boosts your own collagen, gets that collagen level back up, but at the same time had that instant, very gratifying feeling of cooling and soothing and calming it down when you feel like you've got those horrible, hot flashes. But I'm in menopause myself, and I can really identify with just what a horrible feeling it is on the skin.
And let's talk a bit more about the menopause, the dreaded M word that, as you've rightly mentioned, has been so much of a taboo for such a long time. And, why is it now, do you think, that woman in that age bracket is saying, actually, I want to be heard, I want to be seen a little bit more? What do you think, Annie? What's happening there?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think here in the UK, we're definitely seeing the tide turn. So October's obviously been Menopause Awareness Month, and we've seen a lot of celebrities addressing it, but also Facebook communities of women 40 plus. I think we've also done a lot of research here in the UK, both into M&S consumers, to M&S shoppers, and to our peri customer target base as well. And in the surveys, we found that women really do, are ready to talk about the menopause more openly. They do, they are interested in hearing from friends. They do want to talk about it openly, more openly than in the past. So the survey results have been really, really interesting, actually.
Yeah, that's great. And you're absolutely right. The likes of sort of Davina McCall, who's really getting behind this. And, these are household names in the UK, especially, that we're really familiar with. We feel very comfortable with, know that they're quite outwardly spoken anyway. But it's brilliant because it's really getting that dialogue going, isn't it? It's fantastic to see that, actually.
Absolutely. And we've been working with Lisa Snowdon as well here in the UK. Yeah. And she's a huge ambassador for women to talk openly about what they're experiencing in perimenopause and menopause. Some of the symptoms being anxiety, not being able to sleep at night, hot flushes, what happens in the workplace. All of that we're seeing being addressed a lot more openly here in the UK, which is fantastic.
And how was it in the beginning, Kathy, when you first came up with this idea? Was there much resistance to your idea of creating a product specifically for this demographic?
No, actually, Annie and I really sat and looked and thought, what is the next big thing that is missing for women? And if you think about it, as you mentioned, women can go into menopause in their 40s, in their 50s. Everybody's different. I went in it early, but I have to say I'm still in it and still suffering. But I think that it was such a huge missing gap, and very odd when you think about it, that so much of a woman's life, once she goes in it, she spends the rest of her life in postmenopause. And therefore, why was nobody addressing the needs of the skin as you go into that? Because then you're living with it forever.
Yeah, sure. And actually, it's really unjustified, isn't it? Because you're quite right. Quite a lot of the time, historically, brands were using really young-faced models to promote things like wrinkle cream, and actually, it's really the second half of a woman's life you're spent in this. You've done the birthing, you've done the family raising, and you still want to look glamorous. We all have a right to look and feel a certain way, and it's terrible, isn't it, really, that it's been overlooked for so long. And I think, especially here in the UK, it's this idea of you go into menopause and you just become a frumpy old woman, and that's it. How important is the education piece to you guys? A lot of women can stumble into menopause and not really even know they're there. So how important is that messaging?
It's been very important, actually, and that's why we've worked with a menopause doctor. We've partnered with a menopause doctor here in the UK. We've worked with a dermatologist who specialises as well in what happens to women's skin during the menopause. And then, as Kathy mentioned earlier, we have a team of nexperts, and all of our neck experts are trained as well by both the GP and by the derm. So they've got a real understanding of what happens to the skin during menopause.
And so we've already mentioned that in the UK, women can access these products via M&S, but you also have a website. What's the website that people can use?
Yes, we do, peribeauty.co.uk. So we have the Meno Glow range, and it's the Meno Glow range, which is an exclusive collaboration with Marks and Spencer's. So it's Pri and M&S together. And the Meno Glow range is available online with M&S and on our website. And Ocado, we've just launched the Meno Glow range as well.
Fantastic. Excellent. So you can do your shopping and get your menopause products. That's amazing.
UK Health Radio, the station that makes you feel good. UK Health Radio, the station that makes you feel good.
Okay, so joining me now is Sally Mueller and Michelle Jacobs, who are the co-founders of beauty brand Womanness. Thank you very much for joining me today, ladies. It's lovely to have you here. And of course, the focus of this show this week is the menopause, and that taboo word that for so long has been something we mustn't all talk about, and something a woman just suffers in silence with. And tell us about your amazing brand, and what is it about your products that are designed for women at this stage of their life?
Sure. So when Sally and I first started thinking about, Womanness and what we wanted this brand to be, we knew we wanted it to be a brand for women going into menopause, but we weren't really even sure, do we want to be skincare? Like, where do we want to focus? And we spent a lot of time doing focus groups with women, at all different stages. And what we learned really quickly is that there wasn't just one issue that was sort of a consensus amongst them all. They were all different things from, just not having the right skincare. A lot of women experience a very dramatic change in their skin all over their bodies, not just on their face, but like crepey skin on their arms and their legs. Their neck starts to change. So there was a very dramatic, like a lot of women were saying they couldn't find the right skincare. We had a lot of women, almost every woman talked some issue related to sexual wellness, whether it was about libido, whether it was about painful sex, some issues related to sexual wellness. A lot of women talked about their hot flashes, their night sweats, weight gain, hair loss. I mean, it went on and on. So what we decided pretty early is that we wanted to really be a brand that stood for, all of these different symptoms. So we sort of said early on, we wanted to be head to toe and everything in between. So whether it was, skincare, sexual wellness, we even have an incontinence product. We really decided that we wanted to have a range that would touch as many of our customers as we could. And that was really how we developed these products. And then for each category that we went into, we worked with experts and doctors to formulate these products with the best ingredients, with high quality, clinically tested ingredients. As much as we possibly could, we wanted to build this product for this customer.
And I think another lovely thing that I feel from your brand, actually, and even the name, touches on that whole idea, that womanness idea of, women traditionally, if we look right back in time, women have come together in groups to aid each other, haven't they? And to nurse each other, to help each other, to support each other with children, or, as an older woman. And so do you think there is a real responsibility on brands brands, on beauty brands, to really help women with this stage in their life, to actually recognise it a little bit more?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, we've all said through the years that there's all this pressure for women to be beautiful and have beautiful skin. And I think that the shift is happening where you're talking about, diversity of all kinds, whether it's body shapes, skin color, all different shapes and sizes and, of women, and it's beginning to accept that, this whole idea of body positivity. But I think there's also an acceptance on our age and what you can and cannot control. And, some women, of course, could afford, the top-notch plastic surgery, but most women, might not want to and also can't afford it. And I think there's a level of acceptance of like, this is who we are. And, we've all achieved so much. And, the lines of our face are really, tell the story of our lives. Yeah. And so, I think along with body positivity has to be a shift towards, age positivity and understanding that, we are who we are and we have to make the best of it. And women, there's also no reason why you should suffer in silence. I mean, some women have very, very severe menopause symptoms and even light menopause symptoms. And there's plenty you could do to help mitigate some of those symptoms.
I'd encourage any of my listeners, if you want to find out more about menopausal symptoms or perimenopausal symptoms, then go to the womanness.com website and there's a wealth of information there. Well, thank you very much, ladies. Brought to you on UK Health Radio, The Natural Beauty Show, an in-depth look at the beauty issues that affect you.